welcome to today's episode of Play With It. I'm Cass Allen, and today we're talking about dating, from friends to dating. You heard me, we're talking about from friends to dating. There's a lot of gray area when it comes to relationships. A lot of us have a lot of friends. Some people even have friends that they date. But today we're talking about a particular category, from friends to dating. And when I speak of friends, I talk about two people who are platonic. You don't have any sexual relationships. These are not your booty calls. These are not your booty friends. These are you're just your friends. There's no sexual engagement between the two of you. You know, each party relies on the other for some type of emotional satisfaction, gratification, uplifting, etc. But you don't touch each other's body parts, unless you're touching each other in a sister or brotherly way. Like, yo, man, like that bicep right there, that cut. You don't know what I'm talking. Let me touch it and show you what I'm talking about. A girl going, oh, those titties real. Let me touch them. Shits are new. I want to compare them to myself. I've even done that. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about friendship. We're talking about platonic relationships between people who care about each other. Um, and sometimes those relationships change into other things, as you spend time with people, sometimes as you get to know them, not only do you become friends, but you start considering at some points, maybe I should cross the line. I know some of you out there have done it. I've entertained it in the past. Haven't done it. I had five very close friends for a large part of my life, at least 30 years of it. And we were almost like the Brady Bunch. There were three female energies, three male energies. We spent an awful lot of time together. But I can say I never slept with any of them before we became friends or after. And obviously, this has nothing to do with any type of judgment. I'm simply speaking of the context of what we're talking about today. Those kind of friends. One of my female friends, she and I were going to kiss each other's cheeks one day, and we kissed each other's lips. I quickly thought to myself, those are soft lips, but I didn't take it any farther because we were really, really close friends, and I couldn't even consider. She's like a sister to me. I didn't even want to consider it. It had nothing to do with how gorgeous she was and is and the energy that we got from each other. I just never even speculated it. And I know these things can happen. You start out with people sometime in your life. You seem like a cool person. You're not even thinking about all that physical stuff, and you start hanging out. It was a second scenario. And the next thing you know, you're like, yo, I judged you wrong. What I thought about you is not true. And where you had put somebody in the friend zone, suddenly you're like, damn, maybe I put them in the friend zone too early. Maybe there's something else to this. So that's the other type of friends we're talking about here. I've seen it and I've been there, because I'm always putting myself out as that person that's cool with everybody. I don't like a lot of trouble. Most people know that. I'm pretty harmonious. I like to bullshit. I like to talk shit, but I don't like to hurt people. I don't like to put people down. I don't like when people are disrespected. All that shit. That's all me on a real vibe. I don't like when people disrespect humanity or anything that's a part of it. Sometimes we got to handle our business and diss people, but y'all know what I'm talking about at the core of things. So I can become cool with a lot of people. And plus, I've done a lot of shit, been a lot of places. So a lot of times in conversation, I can honestly say, me too. I tried that or I did that. So I end up talking to a lot of people. And sometimes I've been in places where I'm like, okay, this is definitely a friend zone. And weeks later, I'm considering going on a date with somebody. So we're gonna talk about that as it relates to things like longevity, transparency, familiarity. We got those cases where it's hard to cross that line, even though we feel everything's there because we feel we know too much about a person. Sometimes we fear ruining a friendship. So those are the 5 points we're going to try to hit on in this conversation. And as y'all know, we might not get there because we do this based on how I feel. Now we're gonna get this popping. We're talking about some longevity here. A lot of times, in order to even call a person a friend, friend, there needs to be some longevity. Unless you're one of those spiritual gurus who everybody you meet, you absolutely know the insides and outsides of the core and can define them to assess whether or not it's a friendship. It usually takes time to develop a friendship based on time spent with someone, things you have in common, how that person treats you and said parties in your circle and vice versa, how you vibe, how you respect each other, whether or not you even respect each other, and it's time, it favors too. You be like, yo, so and so came through for me. Cool, because you're starting to bud in that direction. Or you see a particular person that's doing a little something that most people in your circle aren't doing, most of your acquaintances. They're showing you that they actually care about you beyond, excuse me, beyond the surface bullshit of how's your day. The people that actually want to know how your surgery went, the people that actually want to that notice when you change the color of your hair, the people that notice when you're sad, the people that notice maybe not your emotion, but notice a change of your emotion because they're not treating you like everybody else. These are the people who genuinely want to know how your day is. They don't say how you doing and still walking while they're asking the question and don't give you a chance to answer. Sometimes when you fucking with people like this, you start feeling special. And depending on the circumstances, you might think about developing a relationship. Um, we talk about longevity as it relates to developing a relationship. I've been spending a lot of time around this person. This person is nicer than I thought I thought. Fill in the blank. This person is more of anything than you thought. But on the flip side of that longevity, can come fear. I've known this person so long that, it is so beautiful that we have such a great friendship that I've never had with anyone else. Therefore, I don't have any type of relationship like this in my life, so be it. It can not only present itself as a blessing, but it can present itself as a hindrance. I've known this person so long that I don't want to mess this up. Then there's the flip side. I've known this person so long, this person knows me better than anybody else. This person gets me. I drop a booger and this person has a napkin waiting kind of relationship. And a lot of friends often can have relationships like that. I've had buddies like that where you just meet, you drive, and the next thing you know, you're like freaking frack. But you're not thinking about any sex. You genuinely are drawn to each other's spirits, like y'all met on the playground in the fifth century, and you niggas done found each other again, and you remember everything and you start playing again. I've been there. Those are such joyful friendships. And as I spoke to earlier, I have not crossed the line in my friendships. And for me, this is my reason. I don't want to ruin my friendships. They're so beautiful to me that I didn't want something so karmic to ruin something so spiritual, because my friendships to me I deemed as very spiritual at one point. I hope y'all heard those words at one point because, on the flip side of all of this, those sacred friendships that were there are no longer there because they were a passage in time. I was so young at the time that I thought this was going to be my life, so I didn't want to break these pacts. Um, Maybe I would have fucked a couple if I could go back now. Now that I know, the shit was gonna break anyway, may as well have just broken them out. I'm not so sure I can answer that because, I wasn't in that headspace. But I'd give myself a couple of dollars on the table, just to be open and fair because we really don't know. If I knew now if I knew then what I knew now, I might have been a different breed. Like I said, in those days of going from friendship to dating, I didn't consider it at all because my friends were my treasures. But I have dated I had acquaintances that have gone. So it's similar on those lines. With the longevity, I think what's most important in that is that we go into these relationships, as I say on just about every podcast I do, if not all of them, with some transparency. You know, a lot of you like to sit in the cut and play little games, and y'all want to date a motherfucker, but y'all cozy yourself in as a friend, thinking if I just lay low in the cut, you know, and be her friend, and you know, when XYZ fuck up, I can become her boo. So you already going into these relationships with intentions, you know. While it may seem cute, you know, you're actually being dishonest to someone because you're setting them up to think that, you know, you want everything except that. You know, they're placing you in their heads in a zone that's making them comfortable. That's why they're giving you that title friend in the first place, because they feel safe with you and they trust you, you know, and they believe that your relationship is just based on the spiritual and not the karmic. When you sitting in a cut, excuse me, like Dastardly and Muttley rubbing your hands, you know, with some grease in between them, waiting to eat on sheep. You know, I personally think it's better to be honest. You know, I've never sat in the cut because it's not my personality. It's not saying I can't relate to it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just built the way I'm built. And like I said, the point of this show is for us all to learn to be comfortable sharing. So talk about everything. Talk about ourselves openly and willfully as I'm trying to present to y'all. You know, as we touch on each of these shows, sharing with y'all almost like we in a fucking therapy group. Pretty much like the show that I'm a part of named Blood Runs Deep. For all of you out there who have not heard of that, you know, it's a show about a family that does therapy in an unconventional way, which you can catch on YouTube. And a lot of the things that I talk about on this show stem from that show, which is why I'm bringing it up. You know, things happen on that show, or there are things I think of that, as the producer and director of Blood Runs Deep, I'll incorporate into that show. You know, sometimes you'll notice the theme from this podcast runs very similar to what's going on our other show. You know, because it is improvisation, you know, we have the ability to do everything on demand, as with this show that comes out quite frequently. So again, as I just mentioned, or even though it was a little off base, that there's a little more transparency, you know, about how this show is being developed. It is to, you know, discuss relationships and as they relates to humans, you know, and dig into some of the core elements that disturb us, that we hide, that we've deemed as taboo, that we're afraid to talk about, we're afraid to explore, we're afraid to attach our names to anything that doesn't look like a clean chicken's ass because everybody's trying to walk around looking like they're perfect. And we're losing the ability to have real conversation with people. When you try to have a conversation with people today, they want to fucking fight you like five fucking sentences into a paragraph when you're trying to explain yourself, because everybody's in the defenses, everybody's got triggers, everybody thinks that everything you're talking about is to try to either put them down, hurt them, say something about them, be negative, call them wrong, XYZ, and we've forgotten the art of communication as a human race. You know, we're all up here texting each other. We're calling each other friends. We don't know anything about each other based on five things we're texting to each other, you know, and then we're taking it out to me too, let's date. Then we're meeting up with these people in the streets that we really don't have a real relationship with, and we're giving them a finger, talking about them like dogs, killing them, shunning them, XYZ. Yeah, there's some positive things taking place, but we're not doing enough in this dating scheme. Especially, and the people out here, including myself at times, you know, there are times I get lazy and I don't put in the effort I need to for the day on whatever the cause is, you know. But like I said, doing this show for me is a product of me serving what I believe to be a higher power. You know, I believe we all receive whispers, whatever the language, whatever the form, whatever your communication with your higher powers, you know, it has to be said in your language. I can't say God speaks English only, because the world has over, I believe, 11,000 languages. I don't remember this shit as much as I used to, but I know it's up there, you know. So if the higher power speaks all things, we all hear, you know. And I try to listen as I speak to you all and discuss these things as it relates to dating. You know, there's a gap out there. People are just fucking and having sex, getting diseases, disrespecting each other, treating each other like pieces of meat. Niggas coming up dead every other day from a date because somebody didn't like what they heard or like what they saw, which is why I feel I found this gap in discussion, something to talk about, and for us all to slow down and really take our time. People are going on dates constantly. This is a common one. Y'all know it from Jerry Springer. I did not know it was a man. Nigga, stop lying. Don't be mad at me for saying out loud, and if you didn't know, you're not taking the time. We gotta slow down. We gotta take time to explore each other. And if you take a little more time to decide what's there, then you can decide what you like or don't like before you killing somebody or pushing somebody off of you or you dissing somebody unnecessarily. A lot of people go on a date and then they criticize the person they went out with for the things that they presented, not realizing the damage they're doing to that person, not only their psyche, but the people around them that are now following your story and looking at these people in a different light that they don't even know. I feel we really need to slow down and use more of that friendship before we go to the dating, which is why it's part of the topic for today, from friends to dating. Again, and y'all know we got exceptions. I talk about all that. If you're just going out there to date and fuck people's minds out and you want to own your shit, do your shit. Just be prepared for what you get back from it. That's your damn business. But I'm talking to people that are out here actually really genuinely dating. I see a lot of this on social media. A lot of people on social media who claim to be single and looking for love. And I see more of that than I see of married couples. I see more of that than I see of happy couples. And it's not because I'm blinded, because, my demographics, insofar as the people that I surround myself with, is very balanced. I don't just hang out with people that look like me, sound like me. They come in male, female, or religions, races, creeds, colors from all over this globe. Because I'm a steadfast believer that in diversity is where we find innovation, and that's where we find humanity. No one of us is right. We're all stems and branches from the same tree. Every leaf doesn't look the same, but we down here trying to fight all to be the same. Don't make no damn sense to me, but we'll talk about that another day. This is a segue into that familiarity, that's missing in a lot of relationships. We don't know what's in front of us. We're just looking at a book. We're looking at a cover. It looks pretty. The book cover looks great. The type size is beautiful. The colors are great. It's just enough for me to read. And you haven't even opened the book yet, and you've made all these determinations. And we've all done it. Oh, this book looks interesting. I've turned on the TV and just seen a damn picture, and a title and like, oh, this shit gonna be good. And I mean, come on, let's really think about that. We do. The haircut's nice, the clothes are nice, the person smells good, they're speaking a nice language, money coming out of their pocket to take care of themselves. And they looking at you with these smoky eyes as they pass by all slow and shit. And they just happen to be your type to look at. You get in that car because you done got a drink and a dinner that same night and some beautiful conversation. That person about to pull off and you're like, nah, I'm a little tired. I'm gonna go home. Next thing you know, you're in the precinct. Busted up fucking face. I'm not gonna go into those details because we all old enough to know what I'm saying here. You gotta take that time. Even with people that you think you know too much about, sometimes a friend is very different from a lover. I'm not trying to put fear in y'all, but I'm being honest. Sometimes a lover will kill you where a friend will worship you for the rest of your life. A lover will wear you the fuck out. And you'll see a side of them that's only reserved for lovers that a friend will never see. So you also have to take that into light. And I know this to be true as I tell you all, I only talk about what I've been through or somebody I know. I had a very, very dear friend who I loved. Oh, I could just pick up her body parts and just kiss her. No, she was my friend. She was my sister, my blood beyond blood. We had a wonderful relationship, a beautiful, beautiful triple, quadruple, exponential relationship. And I'm saying that for a reason, because it's that real. Our time together was amazing. Never Just laugh, 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 have fun. We ran around this country enjoying ourselves, philosophy, had a good time talking about positive visions, all kinds of shit. She was my friend. And then one day she came to me crying with a confession that she was beating her women. Y'all gotta pay attention. Sometimes you think you know too much about a person, but you don't know enough. If you ever considering taking a relationship from dating to friendship and you have the opportunity to watch this person in relationships, pay attention. Cause that could have been me fucking her up, and I hope y'all heard that part of the story, cause she would not have been beating my ass. That could have been me fucking her up. Fucked up the relationship. Now she got a black fucking eye, a broken fucking knee, several teeth missing, because now I got to learn the relationship side of her. Sometimes we fuck up a good relationship with a friend because y'all know it smells good, but they're not even your type. You know this person should just be your friend. You know this. Don't ruin your friendships. It's not worth it. For some on that flip side now, some friendships need to become dating. Sometimes two people are just doing the wrong thing. They're trying to be friends, but they really want each other. Neither one wants to say anything. Both think the other don't. Oh, she don't want me. He don't want me. But you just gotta speak up. Sometimes you need to do it. Sometimes your soulmate is already with you. To wrap this up without going into the complete opposite of everything I just said, which you can all do on your own. Use discernment, try to put more attention into the relationships in your life as they transform into what they become because, we meet new people all the time, all of us, whether you decide to bring them into your life as an acquaintance, friend, you know, um, some type of extended family member, you're still meeting them. Every time you say hi to somebody new, you're being introduced. Whether you're having a business deal, a transaction at the store, calling to make an appointment, every hello is a different person pretty much all of the time. And sometimes some of them end up becoming your friends and your dates. Um, you don't always find your special person at a place that you think you're gonna find your special person, you know. Listen to your spirit. Have you ever called anybody on the phone for business and 4 hours later, a stranger you're still having conversation with, but you say, okay, bye? Pay more attention to your relationships. Is how I'm going to end this. I'm not in the mood to do no long rack up today, wrap up, because I don't think there's any need. I think I went into some of these things deeper than I usually do. Um, like I said, the topic is going from friends to dating, and the things involved as it relates to longevity, transparency, familiarity, knowing too much about somebody, possibly ruining a friendship or missing an opportunity of a lifetime. I believe when we ask for discernment, when we ask, to do the right thing, when we ask to see with clear vision, when we ask to to hear the word, when we ask to see what we need to see, seen and unseen, when we ask to hear what we need to hear, whether it's audible or sign language or whisper, there's a force out there that can gift us what we want. So ask for discernment with spirits so that you can make better choices in the people that you include in your life. Don't serve people, serve a higher power, and through that you'll receive your gifts of people. I used to serve people, whether it was friends or dating. And now I serve a higher power, and I have an amazing system. I have an amazing soul system around me as a result. And that's no insult to the people that I've experienced in my life, whether it's been a friendship or dating. They've all been experiences. I don't have any regrets from my past when it comes to either category anymore because I'm at an age where I understand the lessons that I needed to have in my life. So I thank you all for the journey that got me here because I'm definitely my strongest that I've ever been, and a lot of it is thanks to some of the things that I've been through, that made me turn from a pillow to a rock. So I pray that for all of you as you go through your journeys with your friends and your dates. I wish you a good day and a good night. This has been Play With It with Cass Silent.